Hi everyone, hopefully you're all ready for this. So very quickly, I'm John Griffiths, I'm the field CTO at Dynatrace, and we're the ones sort of sponsoring this talk today. I'm here today with Ishan.
Hi everyone, I'm Ishan Singh. I'm a senior data scientist on Amazon Bedrock Agent Core team.
I'm Matt Eisengruber. I work for CDL. I'm the head of architecture.
Yeah, and I work with Matt. I'm Chris Buckley. I'm head of operations.
So today, we're going to have a really exciting time for you today. So we're basically going to be looking at CDL's journey with AI, how they've gone from early stages in development all the way to actually releasing their AI in production, and how, of course, Dynatrace and AWS has supported them in doing this. Now, as you'd expect, I'm going to start with a little bit on Dynatrace first. So just to check, are any of you here Dynatrace customers? A handful. So that's a good start, at least. So to give you a very quick introduction, what Dynatrace is Dynatrace primarily focuses around observability and security, but the essence of it and where it really comes from is really pushing the boundaries on AI and automation. Now, this isn't just a matter of helping you understand and observe your AI, but also AI within our own platform to enable you to understand the root cause of problems, to automatically detect those problems, and of course, start to self-remediate those problems as well. But as you can see with this slide, it covers everything from your application, your infrastructure, your customer experience, your developer experience, the business observability as well, and even delving into, of course, the AI and LLM observability as well. Now, the way that we're effectively doing this is, of course, the more we move towards AI, the more we have been moving with microservices and so on, the more data there is, the more volume, the more velocity of data. And the issue with data is that with the scale that it's at nowadays, you just don't have the time or resources to actually look at it individually and actually diagnose and investigate, say, each individual log line or whatever it may be. So what we're doing is we're trying to take all of that data in context. Now, that's both from a topological point of view, so actually understanding those logs, those metrics, those traces, those events against those topology entities, but also understanding it within the context of your domain, your application domain, your services domain, your infrastructure domain, whatever it may be, and understanding how that actually applies. Now, the importance of that comes in when you actually start to apply automation and AI on top of that, because any automation or AI based on bad quality data will lead to bad quality answers and decisions being made. So, of course, we're trying to emphasize how ensuring that good quality data is really key to that, both from Dynatrace's own AI, but also if you start to utilize your AI agents through our MCP servers and so on to actually access and utilize the data that we're storing as well, to really drive forwards your business, to enable your teams to do whatever it is that they need to do. Now, when we look at AI as a whole, it's not just, say, the application layer. Again, you need to understand the full context, the full stack of the AI agents or Gen AI observability piece. So, of course, you've got the different layers in that. You've got the application layer, but you've also got, say, the orchestration layer. And, of course, there you can start to understand things like the caching that's taking place and so on. You've then got the semantic layer with your vector databases and so on, where, again, you start to understand the different performances and inputs and outputs and semantic analysis that's effectively taking place on that. And continuing down your actual model and agent layer, and again, understanding exactly what is being utilized and how the token usage, and of course, the importance of that onto things like cost. And then finally, the actual infrastructure computational layer, where you're looking at things like the GPU, the resource utilization, and so on as well. Because any one of those layers, if not tuned appropriately for the other layers, makes things go bad very quickly, whether that's your cost spinning out of control, whether that's the performance becoming really poor, or whether it's actually just providing you with decisions and answers that you're not expecting or that it shouldn't be providing you. Now, from a Dynatrace perspective, in the AI observability area, where we focus on are these 4 use cases. The first one being cost and performance, and looking at how we can control that, looking at token utilization, looking at prompt caching and performance around that. So again, starting to understand how you can improve that cost of your AI engines. And then moving on to things like explainability and debugging with traces. The focus here is traces, because you have that end-to-end understanding. You have that ability to have that explainability, knowing exactly which agents it went through, knowing exactly which models it's actually utilized, not just the ones that were requested, but actually the ones that ended up being responded to. And again, that leads on quite nicely to the compliance side of things as well, because obviously with compliance, you not only need to understand what the actual input and output was, but you actually need to understand why it made the decision it made. At which layer, which tier, which agent did that start to divert down the wrong path when you start to get into compliance issues and start to get into queries around that. So again, having that full explainability of what happened, when it happened, and why is very important for that. And then finally, of course, is the guardrails and the safeguards. Because one of the biggest issues with AI most of the time is trust. So of course, you need to ensure that your guardrails are being utilized appropriately. You need to ensure that the safeguards are there, and you need to ensure that what you're actually providing is what people are expecting. You are actually providing the answers that they should be providing without any other issues coming in. Because once you lose trust, your AI suddenly loses its entire business case associated with it. And finally, of course, we've been partnering with AWS for quite a long time now, well over 10 years. And as you'd expect, we've gone through all of the sort of compliance standards and certifications around AWS. So again, of course, things like the Gen AI competency, as well as the many others that are listed here as well. But again, ensuring that we are mapping and managing against the standards, against how AWS are setting those to ensure that not only are we doing things in the right way, but we're also doing things effectively and efficiently with AWS's own services, both from a perspective of utilizing it within Dynatrace, but also how we're providing visibility of AWS's services for our customers as well. So now I think, I've done my little bit of sales pitch. We can now sort of hand over to, I guess, the main reason why we're here, which is obviously CDL and their story. So Chris, why don't we start with an introduction onto CDL and take it from there?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, before we get going, if I could get everybody's attention, could I get everybody to stand up? Audience participation time. Not joking. Just stand up for me. Stand up for me. I know. It's like third day in. You guys are knackered. All right, stand up. Okay. Who here knows who AWS is? If you know who AWS is, stay standing. Okay. Who here knows who CDL is? If you don't know who we are, please sit down. Wow, more than I thought. Also, thank you, because before we came on stage, I made a bet here with my colleague, because we are in Vegas, and I said I would get all of you to give him a stand when he started. So thank you. I just won that bet.
And you get the round of applause as well, every time. And I just brought me Dynatrace socks with it.
No, lucky socks, man. That's what made it happen.
Excellent, yeah. So I think I'll stand. So who are CDL? We are a B2B software company based out of Stockport, Manchester, England. We deal with B2B, so we deal directly with the companies. As a team, we are 600 strong, and we consider ourselves, at the top of our game in the UK insurance industry. The big green button, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, the big green.
Yeah. So one of my favorite quotes that I heard from one of our suppliers is, CDL are the veins of the UK insurance market. What does that mean? It means we are experts in our field. In the UK, if you're going to do or transact a private car, household, motorcycle, or GV quote online, at some point in that journey, you will touch one of our systems. Typically, we say we deal with around 60% of all the transactions. So just to try and bring that to life, I'm Joe Bloggs. I've purchased a new vehicle. In the UK, by law, I have to insure that vehicle. What do? Typically, I'll go on to one of the aggregators. So in the UK, that might be Go Compare, it might be Money Supermarkets. I will go on there and I will enter my details. All personal to me, my vehicle, my address, and I'll click Get Quote. When you click Get Quote, that will be your first interaction with one of our CDL systems. It might not be a big interaction, but it will be an interaction. If the premium displayed or the price is good, I'll click Go to Buy. Again, chances are 60% of the time, you'll be linked straight through to one of our customers. If you go ahead to buy that quote with that customer, that policy would then be administered on our system. So far we've done the quote and buy. Now we're on to the policy administration. But also, when it comes to the regulation side of things, our systems then tell the UK government that vehicle's insured. So in the UK, we have ANPR cameras. If we don't tell the systems that you're insured based on your registration number and who you are, you're going to get pulled over by the police. So, it's quite a, important sequence of events. So from CDL, we do the purchase, the quote, we do the policy administration, we do the payments, we do the renewals, and we let people know you've actually got the vehicle insured. And one of the things it's important to mention, it's high volume retail we deal with, okay? We're talking that the amount of quotations going through our system is, silly at times. And that's where Dynatrace comes in from an observability perspective. They give us that real-time insights of what's going on. As a customer, I will not wait for a premium to be showed. Why? The market's that competitive that I'll just go to the next one. And it might be 10p cheaper. Yeah, so that's why it's so important that we understand through Dynatrace what our systems are doing all of the time. Now, I did mention it's an ecosystem, so there's a raft of numbers up there to show the scale that we operate at in the UK. As I said, veins of the UK insurance market. We are the middle of that bubble. Okay? The amount of integration into other systems is vast. Once again, some of it's light touch, some of it is our complete product or our complete service. But like I said, at some point in a insurance quote journey in the UK, you will touch one of our systems. One of the scary figures in 2024, in just our bubble alone, Dynatrace observed 1 trillion transactions. We don't know this year's numbers, but I don't know the one to count them, to be fair, but we expect it to increase significantly. Where Dynatrace also comes in is this is highly interconnected. If someone on the outside has an issue, it impacts all the way through. Previously, without Dynatrace, we always got the finger pointed at us, or it must be CDL. It has to be. We use SSO, it must be CDL. But what's not considered is all the other entities in the chain of getting a quote, paying for the policy, administering the policy. So where Dynatrace comes and it instantly tells us where that problem is. Ideally, it's not CDL. And we can use that information proactively to tell our customers the issue is here, you need to go and speak to that vendor, that particular supplier. So, wrong button, there we go. So, as the title said, POC to production, where did it all start? I think, and hopefully he's watching, we are blessed with a very knowledgeable CEO, and when it comes to AI, he's very much pushing the organization to do it. They always say top-down approach, and he lives and breathes that. He's always challenging us to know what's going on in the market. So I feel we are blessed with our CEO that is constantly challenging us. We're not having to convince him we need to start looking to AI with our products and services. He wanted us to build something new and exciting. Give me something with a VR headset. Give me voice, give me vision, give me multimodal, give me something. And I want it yesterday. He's always pushing us to do more and do better. So I think, from that point, we had the early concepts and early design things that we wanted to kind of progress with. But the business ask was, we've got the products, we've got the services, we've got the ecosystem, we've got the knowledge, let's go and build something.
I guess now that you know who CDL is and I guess what the high-level business ask was, I guess the question is, Matt, with your technical insights, where did you start?
Make them stand again. Make them stand again.
Right, yeah. So, as Chris said, CEO's chomping at the bit, right? He's got the GPT Max subscription. He knows the capabilities of things. most of the rest of the board actually uses Gemini in their personal lives and things. So we've got a decent understanding at board level, so that you kind of can't pull the wool over their eyes. Like, I'm not going to blind them by science, right? So we were a little bit on the back foot, and he actually went on stage, and we did a company all hands, and he said, right, we're going AI inside. So for those Intel fans, remember the Intel inside logo? That's kind of what he was playing on to get it in our heads, like, it's got to be inside everything we do. So he did that bit, and then it was like, okay, and then he got asked the question. Somebody said, well, you know, hey, big boss, do you have all the answers? And he went, no, I absolutely do not have all the answers. And then he pointed to me and the team in the back, and he went, but those guys will. They'll figure it out. So it was like, no pressure, right? So anyways, we were a little bit on the back foot, but then once we got thinking about it, as Chris said, it was, well, actually, there's a bit of a journey that we took to get to the ecosystem that we were in that put us in a pretty decent position. So first off, technology. Well, we used to have 2 data centers in the UK. For those of you that know the UK, they were just outside Manchester in our Stockport area. And we made a call because what we kept doing is landing bigger and bigger customers, and we weren't able to scale. So we went, right, we're going to go cloud first is how we started. And we went, right, we're going to go cloud first. So any new customers, we're going to put them on AWS. Good. And we went, we got a few big customers on AWS. We went, you know what? This is actually really good, and the old stuff isn't really that good. So then we went cloud only, moved all our customers over in 2 years. So now we got all our customer base on AWS. That's important because now we've got the agility and the ability to adopt new tech when it comes out, as we're leading into AI, right? Next thing we did is it's not just enough to move to cloud. You also have to have things that are accessible. As John said, you need to have context for AI in order for it to be useful. So luckily, we had adopted a product mindset about being API first. So almost all our services, which also helped with the interconnectivity, right? We needed to make it easier for our customers. But again, it plays heavily into the AI space in that we adopted this AI first mentality, which means that data can now be surfaced to AI easier. So 2 key things there, cloud migration and API. Next thing we did, which I know it's a tech conference, but you're all people, right? So we focused on our people and went, what do we need to do in order to get our people there? So as part of the cloud migration, we actually upskilled all our engineers. So Chris said at the beginning we were a 600-strong company. 250 of those people are engineers. We made it a mandate that every engineer had to get the cloud practitioner certification. We did this not because we're mean people. We did this because we wanted everybody to be able to talk the language so that when we walked into a room and said a word like S3, EC2, Bedrock, no one had to ask, what is that? So we upskilled the language so that everybody's talking on the same plane. Next thing, the other thing that we did around this is we tried to change the culture. So I don't like to use the Silicon Valley term fail fast, but what we did is we made it so that exploration was fun and safe. Safe as in, like, you're not going to get a backlash because if the idea doesn't work, it's okay. So how we did this is we did things like incubators and hackathons. So we created events for our engineers with their newfound skills now, and we gave them exposure to the technology. Because that's the most important thing that we found, even with our board, is that the more exposure you give to AI, the less fear there is around it, the more the understanding is around it, the easier it is to push forward. So that also kind of wasn't enough because of the way that we work and the highly regulated industry that we're in. We're like PCI DSS and all the rest of it. We also needed to do what's right, and we wanted to do it the right way. So we also started to look at our process. So once we got our people skilled up, it's like, okay, but we probably got some processes that aren't going to help us. So one of the first things we did is we formed an AI steering group. Now, this steering group was composed of a few executives. So again, had that top level down support. It was compliance and legal. Because again, the hurdles that we figured we were probably going to come up against are the same hurdles we're coming up against today, which is compliance and legal and cybersecurity challenges, right? You guys all know what it's like, right? You build the software, and then you almost make it out the gate, and then it's like, pump the brakes. We're like, right, we didn't want to make that mistake, so we included them in that conversation, in that steering group. And then also we had subject matter experts like architecture. There's actually a fellow in the room over there, he's also in that group. And that was so that we could bring that deeper AI understanding into that AI steering group. So we've got decision makers, we've got experts that understand our interaction with our customer, which is really important. So the steering group, it allowed us to clarify our why across the piece. It also kept the customer in the room because we were talking about things like contracts, like, okay, we're going to be using their data differently. Do we need to redo contracts? AI is going to be more transactional. Do we need to think more of a SaaS model? Is it going to be outcome-based? How are we going to do this? We needed to steer those decisions at that level up there so that, like the CEO said, we don't have all the answers, so we needed to form that group to begin to give the answers to the people so that they can build the right thing. So centralizing the big decisions made it easier for us to coordinate and then roll those out across the piece. We also adjusted current processes to streamline adoption of the AI tooling and services themselves. So again, we're regulated in things, so we needed to make sure that if we were going to introduce something, we weren't data leakage, right? Like somebody wasn't going to upload some of our developer code into ChatGPT, and that's stored in the States, which is a big no-no when you're in the EU. So it's like, okay, we needed to watch those kind of things. We also needed to do that because the pace of change that AI brings, and this is something that you kind of feel it when you go to cloud, like that kind of speeds up. And it's like AI is like that on steroids as far as you need to be able to make decisions very quickly as an organization because week to week it's changing. Now cloud, it used to be you could go to a conference like this, right? You go to reInvent, and then afterward everybody goes home, and before Christmas you write up your plan for here's all the stuff from reInvent that I'm going to introduce in the next year until next reInvent. AI is like that every week. So we adjusted our process to streamline this so that as evolving tech shows up, we can evaluate that and bring that through. So to give you an example, when a new model drops, so I believe it was the Claude 4.5 model, we had that approved via this group within 48 hours, so we could start using it. Previously, this would have taken probably about 3 months. So you got to look at your process as well. We also used that time to kind of reevaluate who we were as a company around ethics. So it's a good time to kind of sense check, who you are to your customers, again, keeping them in the room. So one of the things we did there was it helped us encapsulate some of those requirements around like how. Because it's one thing to do AI, it's another thing to, like I said, do it right. So with us, our tagline is making powerful partnerships. So how you do that, as John was alluding to, is you have to maintain trust and you have to be transparent about what you're doing. And us as a B2B, we ultimately have to be transparent because we're the platform that our customers operate on and they need to know how their lifeblood of their business is running. So I mentioned we're a highly regulated industry. There's 2 reasons I wanted to mention this. One, we got PCI, we got GDPR. Some of those might not be considerations for some of you in the room as US people. But one of the other things was we were looking for like an AI standard. And at this point in the journey, there's a thing called ISO 42001. That like was in its infancy. It wasn't really understood yet. So we didn't actually have anywhere to go with this, but we were watching that because we figured, you know what? That's probably going to give us some trust. It's going to help us build trust with our customers. So what we did do is we leaned on the well-architected. So we did so our product we built will be FTR ready, if you're familiar with that, so foundational technical review. So we made sure they got verified by AWS that we're technically correct. And then we wanted to go for the ISO standard, which I'm happy to say we've just received over the last 2 weeks. So we've actually got an ISO 42001 AI system. So that should help us both in the pre-sales and around the trust and transparency. Another thing that was happening in this time, we got to go back, this is like back in January, is security, right? So in traditional web world, you've got like entities like OWASP, right? So it used to be dead easy with CyberSec because you go, right, OWASP top 10 for web, right, we're going to throw Advanced Shield on top of that, put a WAF in front of it, use the managed rules that AWS give us, cybersecurity signs off, we're good to go. So we're like, right, what's OWASP got for us? And they didn't have anything at the time. And then literally I said that to the board, and then a week later, the OWASP top 10 LLM exploits came out. But there's no managed rule set for that. So we went, okay, right, this system has got to have a guardrail. We're going to have to figure out guardrails, but at least we know what the requirements are going to be for these guardrails because we'll lean on OWASP.
So let's bring all that together. We've got a CEO who's on board. We've got the ecosystem to make a difference. And what I mean by make a difference is we're going to be able to use AI at a large scale with trillion transactions. You saw some of the numbers before about quotations. Our system has 7 million policies. How can we use AI to help our customers transact and manage those policies cheaper? Yeah? So it's all about efficiencies and productivity. We need to address compliance at pace. We're in a highly regulated industry, as Matthew said, but we brought everyone along on the journey. But AI goes at pace, so how do we keep up? How do we ensure we're using the latest tech? I said before, we're the center of the ecosystem, so we're in prime position to make a real-life difference to how that industry works. And also, we've got the products. When the CEO first said, build me something in AI, we all went away and said, right, what new product are we going to build? What new shiny thing are we going to bring to the market? And we kind of, went to say, oh, we need to make all these fundamental changes. And to the CEO's credit, no, we've got the products, we've got the services. AI needs to utilize those to make the difference. So it meant we had to be a lot more surgical in our thinking. It wasn't wholesale, chuck all that in the bin and start again. It was, we've invested 35 years in developing all this technology, these relationships, how people used it. So we had to take a much more surgical approach in how we were going to embed AI in those particular services.
Yeah, so I think it's obviously good to see there that it wasn't just a matter of going in all guns blazing, building anything and everything. It was a thought process that started this. It was understanding exactly what should be happening, why it should be happening, and changing not just what they were trying to do, but also changing the internal processes to actually make what they wanted to do work for the future, not just to get it out, but also to continue that momentum going forwards. But I guess back to Matt, the big question is the technology, right? Yeah. How did you start POCing it? What did you start using, and so on?
Yeah, because this is a juicy bit, right? This is why you guys are here. So we just said the CEO was using this AI inside terminology, and then the CTO, which is our boss, came in and he had this concept of, he said, we need this engine room layer. So like Chris said, we don't want to throw it all away. We've got all these APIs that got all this rich information and it's accessible. We need to have a layer though. We need to have an engine room that our customers can connect to, similar to the front door we were trying to create with the API. So we took that away, and architecture had a bit of a brain dump, and we went, right, this stuff is changing so fast. And you got to remember, LLMs were dropping. This is like, you guys know how it is, right? Anthropic releases one, and they go, we're the best. And then Grok releases one, we're the best. And then ChatGPT releases, we're the best. And they've all got different evaluation ways and metrics. And it's like, how are you supposed to? So I looked at this as if I was an investor. And an investor, you've got two different strategies. You've got active investing, which is where you go and you pick a horse. Or you got passive investing, which is where you buy an index and you just invest in the market. So I said, right, based on how much these guys are leapfrogging, I don't think picking a horse is the right example. And everybody's like, yeah, that makes sense, actually. So I said, what we'll do is we'll come up with a mechanism that allows us to evaluate these. So we need something that allows us to chop and change the models, but also evaluate them so that we're not regressing when we do change a model. So we're not going backwards if we make a change. The other side we needed to worry about was the insurance industry isn't exactly the fastest moving place, right? We do some cool things around volume and we use technologies in clever ways sometimes, but it's not the most forward thinking, right? So we knew that in order for our customers to get on board with this, we were going to need to introduce this as a thin slice of value. So I'm going to sound a little bit like a product person now. So we needed to get this thin slice of value, but that thin slice had to be across that tech stack that we were trying to create. And then that needed to be quite modular so we could go, right, once we've got that, we're going to wash and rinse and repeat that and keep introducing these thin slices so that our customers can go on this journey as well. Because otherwise, we're going to tear their face off as we're going, and nobody's going to want to jump on with us. So that was the ideas. And then we're like, right, pretty sure somebody's figured this out before. So the first thing we did is we reached out to AWS. So as you guys go down this, and once you've defined your why, like we were, and you've got some of your how, now is when you start leaning on the platforms that you've chosen and your partners. So we leaned heavily on AWS. So we got in our AWS solution architect. We gave them that. We said, right, we need something that gives us model selection. We also need something that does evaluations quite quickly so that we can chop and change. Like that's a major requirement on the technical side. We also need it to be secure. We need to have guardrails. Gave him the whole dump. And he went, oh, actually, Matt, we got a good one for you. It's called Bedrock. It's like, excellent, Bedrock. Sounds great. What is it? Yabba dabba do. All right, let's go. So that was cool. So we're like, right, Bedrock, start researching that. And then we reached out to John here and we said, hey, John, you helped us when we moved to cloud. We mandated that Dynatrace had to be on everything when we moved it to cloud. You switched on the lights for us. What's your answer for AI? And John goes, well, funny, Matt, I got something for you. And he pulled up this dashboard. I was like, oh, it's pretty good, John. What am I looking at? And he said, well, it's traditional Dynatrace metrics in the sense of you got your performance metrics and things. But what it also did, because we knew we needed to worry about security, performance, cost, right? Typical IT problems, that's all in there. But what it also opened our eyes up to was things that we hadn't considered yet at the time, which was behavioral metrics of AI. So things like relevance and grounding and how many times you've denied a topic so you've triggered a guardrail because somebody's tried to exploit something. And that was like, okay, yeah, actually, that's really useful. And then our head of product saw this, and he went, I absolutely need that, because this is the first time that I've tied together performance metrics with AI-based metrics, with token usage, with cost. So now I've got the whole gamut. I've got everything, which is great. So we said, awesome, we're going to push forward with this. So Dynatrace became a main component of this. From the POC stage, observability was required. So we didn't wait. Day one, it was like, we're doing this. So this is all the bit you guys have been waiting for. We got out our big box of crayons, started drawing pictures. That's what architecture does. So on the right-hand side here is the ecosystem Chris was talking about. We've obviously only got one service on the right-hand side there, but that was our API interfaces. What we then did is we layered Bedrock on top of that using a multi-agent approach. That's a supervisor with then sub-agents below that are domain-specific. There's reasons why we did this. Most of the reason was, as you guys will have found out now, so it's like hindsight was 20/20 on this, as we were going to expose those interfaces, remember, this is before MCP was a thing, so MCP wasn't out yet. We needed to keep our domain of what that agent knew. We needed to keep that as specialized as possible so that we could use the smallest model possible for the highest accuracy. So that's always the balance you're trying to play, right? Small model, but then on your front, where your supervisor is, you want that one to have like ultimate reasoning, so it can utilize the downstream agents very cleverly. So it's got to interpret what the customer's trying to say on the right or on the left-hand side coming in. It's got to interpret that, reason that, and then farm out the work to say, ooh, you wanted to do a quote. Well, I'm going to send you to the quote agent. Or you want to make a change to your policy. Maybe you've gotten married and your name's changed. I'm going to send you to the MTA, which is a midterm adjustment agent, which is just, I'm just changing a certain detail about my policy. What that also did, though, is Bedrock gave us really firm guardrails. So the guardrails in Bedrock are amazing. They're really flexible. So you can do it on the input, which is great, so that when somebody tries to act like a grandma or trick it into giving you admin privileges, it won't. It also does things like it can prevent data like oversharing. So somebody might ask for something, which is seemingly okay on the way in, so you wouldn't want to block it. But the model itself might overshare, maybe some PII. We don't want that, so you can block it on the outbound. So that's all really great. The other thing we did, as I said, the observability bit, we leaned on OpenLLMetry. I don't know if you guys are familiar with OpenLLMetry, but if you take a step back into Dynatrace world for a second here, Dynatrace came out with PurePath, which was essentially the precursor to OpenTelemetry, for those that don't know. So OpenTelemetry is the open source version, essentially. PurePath was their proprietary thing that pretty much was the claim to fame. So we already had PurePath on the right-hand side, so we needed to find a way to extend that PurePath back out to our customer, because that's where all the value is. So Dynatrace has got an SDK that you can drop in to Bedrock, which is what we did. So we dropped in this SDK, and all of a sudden we lit up Bedrock, and we can see all the inputs and outputs, and all the times a guardrail's triggered, and we can tie that back to the back-end system calls as well. So now we've got tracing from customer to back-end, which is brilliant.
One thing you didn't mention the model story about the costing. So the reason I always get Matt to mention this is it's bringing business insights based on that dashboard. So is it worth mentioning that? I always throw you under the bus, but
Which one's that one?
the costings one, the model, the Vincut version.
Oh yeah. So one of the things that we got off the observability quite early on. You're talking about the one where we had exhaustion. Yeah. So we were using a model, and we were almost ready to launch it into production. So this was like going to be the premier launch. And then we hit a thing where we were getting errors. And had we not had observability in with Dynatrace, we wouldn't have saw what that error was. The error was actually token exhaustion, and the solution was really simple: update the model, because we were using an end-of-life model. That was it. But had we not had any of that, we would have spent weeks trying to figure it out, right? But we were able to do that, and then it didn't delay our release.
Cool, thank you. So for my own sanity, I had to put a simplified version of the previous slide, because I'm probably the least technical person here at Dynatrace. But very briefly, what we can see there is I mentioned vision and voice at the start. So we've got the multimodal digital, how customers want to make those changes to the policy. We've got Amazon Connect at the top, or AWS Connect at the top for that voice side as well. So it's the same engine powering all these different inputs on the customers, and it's giving them the choice. They have the choice of what they want to do. And then going back to, at the start, we wanted to throw all the products in a bin and build this brand new AI thing. What we've got in the middle is this AI engine room that Matthew spoke about. Matthew? what Matt spoke about before, agent intelligence. And that's what we are engaging our customers with now. So it's not mass wholesale change, it's a compliant product. We've got legal buy-in, we've got compliance buy-in, and we're not scaring our customers. We're going after the low-risk change. And in the UK market, low-risk change are changes that don't impact the premium. So changing your telephone number would be a good example. Updating your marketing preferences. Don't send me any more junk mail, those kind of things. So yeah, I just wanted to include this kind of slide as a precursor to what the complex, scary AWS diagram looked like.
I guess now that we've done that exciting, nice and deep explanation there, I guess the real question is with so much change going on, and as you said before, MCP servers existed, and obviously having to architect all of this, how was that learning curve? How did you adapt and ensure that all of your teams were able to follow that learning curve with you?
Funny you should ask, yeah. Got a slide on that one. So to me, Matt touched on it before right at the very start, and it's about culture. It was very much about bringing people along on that journey. So it's making sure everyone was using the same terminology in a technical sense, but also with the use of the AI dashboard, everyone using the same business language as well. So to me, the biggest learning curve was language and understanding across the business. However, what we also came across were items in the news. So being non-technical, I hear the phrase DeepSeek, and I'm in a panic contacting Matthew going, we need to start again, we need to throw everything out. DeepSeek's come along, it's cheaper, faster, all that kind of good stuff. And this is where the groundwork we put in at the start starts to pay dividends.
Yeah, so going back to that diagram, if you remember, one of the original requirements was we needed a mechanism for evaluating models. So this is where it started to pay the dividends, right? I got my first dividend kick out of this passive investment. So Chris came to me, rightly so, right? Because there's like trillions wiped off the market overnight. He goes, holy smokes, DeepSeek, what are we going to do about it? What's the answer? He wasn't the only one asking. CEO was asking. Board was asking, what are we doing? Is it something we need to jump on? Is it something we not need to jump on? So what we did is we used Bedrock's evaluation capability via LLM as a judge and other things, and matched that with Dynatrace's observability to look at the metrics and go, right, do we need to chase this, or is this just market hype for us, right? I'm not saying it's market hype for everybody, but in our particular case, what we did then is we actually wrote a blog on it and posted it. So if you look for CDL and you look up DeepSeek, you might see the blog that we wrote on it, where we actually gave the eval stats and our testing methods and how we did that. So that was a really quick way for us to not lose focus, because with all this change coming, one of the things that you're going to constantly have to remind yourself is, why are you doing AI, and should you jump on the next thing? Like, when's the next time to jump on it? The other thing that Chris was talking about terminology is there's a lot of three-letter acronyms in IT. There's a lot more three-letter acronyms in AI, and there's protocols getting released all the time. So A2A, AP2, MCP, right? I would say those things, and I wanted the board to understand. So a lot of that terminology I would bring to the board and say, MCP is this. This is what it means. And then I would encourage them to go and use that. I'd almost give them like a homework assignment. It's like one of the things I did is I said, right, has anybody tried a different mode besides chatbots? And like nobody raised their hand. I said, right, how many of you use Gemini? They went, oh yeah, everybody. Okay, cool. Use Gemini Live. Try it tonight. Try it with your kids. And that's how we started to introduce it into the board, to get them, because then the fear reduces and they start to see the potential.
Yeah, so protocols, this journey started probably back in January, and everything was new. MCP was new, A2A was being mentioned. I'm frantic trying to keep up. But one of my kind of favorite times in the month was when it came to the board meeting. Our CEO's, our CEO, highly educated in what's going on in the world of AI, and he's always trying to out AI Matt in the, saying, I've learned this, I've read that, what are you bringing to the table, Matt? So, the AI world was always changing. But what I'm starting to, as a non-tech person, is starting to enjoy is the world of MCP, the world of Dynatrace MCP, but also being able to connect that to Kiro as well. So, the tech is now starting to put it in someone's hands that doesn't fully understand tech. The Dynatrace MCP with Kiro, I can see us rolling that out to a almost service desk level, where the service desk now are able to service our customers using, this kind of AI tech. So it's not only B2B, well, not only B2C, it's also B2B now as well. Matthew?
Yeah, so around what Chris was talking about, again, this goes back to that AI steering group. So because of that AI steering group, we were able to get Kiro approved again within a few days, and we rolled that to all 250 engineers. What we then did is we held a hackathon a couple of weeks after we enabled that, got Dynatrace to give us early access to their MCP, which is hosted, which is great, right? Hosted MCPs are way better because you don't got to manage them. And then we had AWS come in and help us with a Kiro training session. And then we combined all that, and our last hackathon that we had a couple of weeks ago, we had 23 teams submit, and of those 23 teams, 21 of those teams used Kiro and some form of MCP, some with Dynatrace, some without. So we're seeing a massive adoption across, and it's like making changes, but again, it's helping people get over that hurdle of that learning curve and understanding the protocols and what MCP means for them in their day. Because I gave a thing and I said, think about the things that make you want to get out of bed in the morning. Don't use AI for those. Think about the things that makes you want to stay in bed. Those are the things that you want to automate with AI. And to explain some more of what AWS's offering is around this, because I talked a little bit about Bedrock, a little bit about Kiro, I'm now going to hand over to Ishan to talk about some of the further developments.
Thank you, Matt. So we looked at building AI agents is a part culture journey. We also looked at how different offerings like observability through Dynatrace helped CDL go in production, work, and build these agents. We also looked at how evaluations along with observability was the key to get to production. So we at AWS believe that AWS is the best place to build, deploy, and operationalize AI agents. And if you are looking for the recipe to building the agents, you are in the right place. So let me give you like a 4-point note on what are some of the successful ways you can build the AI agents. So starting with, you need to have a use case defined which has a clear success criteria. Success criteria is often a mix of not just the quality, but also latency, cost. And don't miss out on good experience, because that's what you are building with these AI agents. So as you are building these agents, you are often looking at different frameworks. You are looking at different models so that no one model can solve for all the problems. So you need a choice of models. You are also looking at how can you securely, safely, and reliably deploy these AI agents in production. And lastly, you are also looking for how do you make these AI agents discoverable to your other organizations, other teams, maybe externally to customers. To do all of this, let's look at the portfolio that AWS has across different AI services. So on the top, we have the out-of-box agentic features like Kiro. Kiro is our code build tool. You can build spec-based agents using that. Then if you come a little down from that, in the center, you have Amazon Bedrock and Agent Core, which provides you with inferences for the models. It gives you ability to build agents, deploy agents in production. And then as you need more control in terms of the infrastructure that powers all of these agents and your workflows, you may want to look into the infrastructure side of the things, like SageMaker provides you with the choice of how you customize these different instances. You can also look into the AI compute side of the things with Trainium and Inferentia. So these are a lot of offerings. And today we are talking about AI agents, building them in a reliable way. So I want to focus only on the Amazon Bedrock Agent Core side of the things. So these are 9 different services offered under Amazon Bedrock Agent Core. So I'll start with the runtime, and I'll try to describe each of those on a high level because we have roughly 15 minutes left. So Agent Core runtime is where you can deploy any agentic framework that uses any any LLM model, and you can do that on scale. So super easy to go production by deploying your agents on Agent Core runtime. Agents need memory so that they can personalize the responses. So Agent Core memory comes in handy there. It can seamlessly work with your agent, and all of these are production ready. All the services that we see here are composable. So you don't have to like use specific services in a specific order. You can just pick any, use those wherever you are in the journey of building these agents. Then we have identity, which is such an important aspect of controlling what access does this agent have, what tools it can invoke, and so on and so forth. Then we have gateway, which exposes, which actually acts like a central, let's say, central place to host all your tools, such that it can, such that your agent can talk to them seamlessly. Then we have code interpreter and browser. These are the built-in tools you can just associate directly with your agent. Again, using any framework, any model. So you could just associate those and use these out of the box. They are ready, ready for the production agents. Then you have built-in observability, and yesterday we also launched policy and evaluations. So policy helps you, so we first looked at identity, which controls what access the agent has, and then policy comes in and helps interrupt wrong actions that an agent can take. Because as you know, agents are powered by large language models, which are non-deterministic. So Agent Core policy helps in to intercept any unexpected behavior. A typical example of that would be like, let's say, your agent can refund on your behalf. And you have a policy that, hey, I don't want any refunds to be issued that are over $1,000. So if you want to implement this, Agent Core policy is something that would come very handy. Then evaluations is another offering that we had launched yesterday. It provides you like with built-in evaluators that you could use, but you can also extend these to custom evaluators. They are LLM as judge-based. So let's look at how Agent Core, different offerings within Agent Core work together. So as we see in this diagram, we have Agent Core runtime in the center of it. So you can deploy, again, any agentic framework, be it, let's say for an example, Strands agent, be it could be a LangGraph, could be LangChain, Llama Index, anything really. So you can deploy any agentic framework that is using any any LLM model, and it can seamlessly interact with memory to get the personalized records of the context that you want to feed into the agent. The runtime, Agent Core runtime also seamlessly interacts with gateway. Again, there is an authentication layer here. So every time your agent that's hosted on runtime also has to get access from the identity in order to go through the gateway so that it can seamlessly fetch tools, search through tools, and search of tool in the gateway is such an important feature, because you may have hundreds of tools, maybe thousands of tools, and you don't want to feed all of them into the agent's context. So it really gives you that relevance and efficiency that you are after. And then if you look at the tools, there is browser tool and code interpreter. You can seamlessly associate those into your agent. And observability and evaluation sort of sits through across all of these. And you get observability not about just the agent tracing, but also like, hey, how many requests were raised to my gateway? Was it authenticated or not? Did my agent invoke the memory? What was fetched from it? What was written to it? And all those good things. So I spoke a lot about the capabilities, how you build, these are like composable services, so you could use these to build AI agents. But as I mentioned earlier, you are really after creating a good experience. And technical capabilities are not equal to good experience. Good experience is the only one feature that matters as you are creating these AI agents. With that, I'll hand over to John.
Yeah, so I think obviously we've had most of the CDL story now, but I think the key part here, especially with what Ishan's been saying about the sheer breadth of the AWS platform and what can be provided, and the reality of how much new capabilities have come out in the recent even weeks, even this week specifically, but the recent months and so on. How did you as CDL know when it was right, when it was time to move into production, when it was the appropriate time and you weren't just adding on new capabilities continuously? When was it right to move into production? And of course, how was that actual rollout into production?
All right. Well, I'd say we knew we were ready for production when AWS was verified it with the FTR. We achieved the ISO standard, or we were on the path to achieving it, because I think we actually released it slightly before. And we knew that we had defined enough thin slice of value, so our product research came in and said we've defined a thin enough slice that it's useful. And so we combined all those things about why we were trying to do it, and we had a good enough story, and we had all the go-to-market material. And combining all those things then allowed us to push that button and have the faith to take that step. That will vary from organization to organization, is what I'll say on that. But as long as you're firm on your why and you've identified that first thin slice and you've secured it to, you've got your sign-offs, just push the button, take the step.
Yeah, I think just to add to that as well, this is just the start. We've got the compliance and we wanted to go at pace, and we feel we've done that. What we can do now is we can start to work with our customers. So we've worked with our partners, AWS and Dynatrace. We can now start to work with our customers and find out where their value is. We've opened their eyes to what AI can do with our products. It's now, let's go together. Let's go at pace together. Let's help you with your challenges. Let's help you figure out where we can help you. Our systems are highly configurable. So how they can be used varies from customer to customer. But focusing on kind of customer success, our products, our ecosystem, work with them and see what's next. So who knows what it could be? Are they ready for those changes to a policy that impact the premium, or are they wanting to go, actually, let's work more on the policy lifecycle changes, which are less risky.
Okay, so we don't have a massive amount of time left, unfortunately.
That's fine.
Sorry, talked a bit.
Do like to talk. So I guess very quickly, rather than going into full Q&A, obviously, Chris, just then you were talking about your customers and their success. Have you got any insights around how this has specifically impacted them?
The biggest one is fear at the moment. It's something new. So we've been on this journey for 12 months, and we've been engaging them and talking to them. So it's bringing them on the journey now. It is probably the biggest thing I've got to say. What we don't want to do is kind of scare them with the new technology. What was that me? So that would kind of be my thing. That's the biggest learning I've got so far. But I think internally as well, we've learned a lot. I think the opportunities that Kiro, Dynatrace, MCP, and all the other MPCs are going to give us is really going to open up internal opportunities. We speak a lot about AI and efficiencies, but it's trying to find the why, but also the what. And I think Dynatrace MCP is really going to open up opportunities at our service desk level from a first line and also second line as well.
I guess, Matt, have you got any key takeaways you'd like to give from this whole experience?
Know your why, right? So with AI, it's not about how many things you can do, right? Because it can do so many things. It's about picking the right thing that works for you. Make sure it's part of your core value proposition. And I know that probably sounds really basic, but that is so key to actually getting value. What you are giving your customers today without AI is value enough, right? Because obviously you're still making the sales. You guys are all still sitting here getting paid. To take that next step, you got to think, right, what is AI going to do that's going to transform that? And grab onto that and just run with it as fast as you can.
And I guess finally, very quickly as well, obviously Isham mentioned Agent Core, obviously a very big thing for AWS at the moment. Obviously didn't exist when you were doing all of this, but I guess the question is have you started utilizing that? How do you think it's going to impact your estate and what you've built so far, and what's your thoughts?
Yes, we're actually working on V2 of that engine room already. So again, if Matt's still here, he's in the back there, he's working on V2 for me. But essentially, yes, it will very much include Agent Core as an option. We see it as a way to, remember how I said we needed to wash, rinse, repeat those thin slices? We see Agent Core as giving us that repeatable capability of doing that, and it will probably allow us to embrace MCP in our back end to start, to connect to these, because we've got all these API interfaces. So it's like, right, we need to MCPify, if that's a word, all those things, and we think Agent Core is going to help with that. We also know that as our customers catch up, so to speak, and they come up with their own chat things or LLM things, they're going to want to use us as a tool in MCP speak. So we are probably going to need to offer them an MCP interface, again, which we think we can do with this. And it's especially helpful because I think it was just this week that API Gateway now supports that type of transaction. So again, you're looking at our model going, you can see the V2 before I even really need to draw it.
Anything you wanted to add, Ishan, on anything that could help them further?
Yeah, so I think really what, from the capability point of view, Agent Core does have these composable services that you can use in order to build these agents and go to production reliably. But I think I also want to focus on developing a success criteria as we are all thinking about building AI. And especially like measurable success criteria, because that's really how you are going to measure if your agent is performing or not. And usually this success criteria should be very much related to what your business metrics are. So I want you to also like focus on that and have the experience piece a part of that success criteria.
So if you do have any more questions, we will be outside for a little bit, so do feel free and come and ask questions to any of us about anything. Probably specifically Dynatrace, CDL, and what they've done on their journey. But obviously, Dynatrace, we do have a booth in the expo, so please do come and see us at 575. And if you did want something to read on your potentially long walk back to one of the other hotels for your next talk, feel free to scan one of the QR codes as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thanks,
Appreciate your time.